Hiya, and welcome back to No More Future. The game that teaches us that... Yeah, I think it is. The game that teaches us that... It's very warm. Because the colors. But yeah, let's just hop right in. Need to fucking distract myself. Oh god. The sounds of civilization, blissfully unaware of what happened in its sinister underbelly, still resonate beyond the buildings around you, a never-ending symphony of voice of people and things always just playing just out of reach. But your immediate surroundings are pure quiet, and they have been for quite a while. Ever since you ran from your misdeeds and hid yourself in this forgotten corner of shadow and neglect. A place so remote, so willfully uninspiring, you'd never gaze at it on a regular day, much less set foot in. Yet now it houses your broken and battered body amid the dumpsters and their trash, as well as what remains of your conscience. Oh god! Oh god! God damn! Isaac, are you good? Needless to say, you've had better days. You've had far, far better days. Are you alright? A nervous voice inquires within your mind. For it must have been the umpteenth time. A voice you can barely hear amid the swirl of darkness that now inhabits your thoughts. It's been a while since you last spoke. Are you sure you don't need anything? In your heart, you no longer have the strength to even answer anymore. The idea of talking, of thinking, is now so profoundly disconnected from your essence that it almost feels unnatural. And yet, thinking is all you can do at this point. Think back to what you've just been through, what you just did. Reliving your memories like an endless tape that rewinds as soon as you've reached the end. A shame that will haunt you for as long as you live. I can't believe I did that. To a person. What was I thinking? How did it come to this? These and many other questions you repeat to yourself, interminably and without mercy. Only this time, you get an answer. It wasn't your fault. He was one who attacked you and I pulled the trigger. I still helped you do it. I put us in that situation in the first place. You strike back, angrier than ever. Angry with yourself. I killed a man, Natalie. I killed a synthetic. And there's no excusing it, no forgiving it. An uncomfortable silence follows, stretching toward what feels like infinity. At least until you hear the Labrador's panicked voice again. We still don't know that! Synthetic bodies are quite sturdy, and black boxes are... My tail blew up in his face! You counter once more, your vision growing fuzzier despite the lack of tears. The light, the char, the smoke... I saw it all happen before my eyes. I heard it. I smelled it. And then it was over, just like that. Metal and wire and ooze leaking out. A body, now lifeless once again. Oh yeah, that's trauma. That's definitely traumatizing. Now's not the time. Cats, now is not the time. I love your take on comedy and whatnot, but just now is not the time. I'm sure later will be the time, but now probably isn't. Natalie hesitates on the other end of the call, pondering just how to continue from here. Still trying to be of help. Even now. Hang on, let me make sure it's all correct. Stream info. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, it's all correct. Got the tags. Yep, significant profanity. Still trying to be of help, even now. We did what we had to, Isaac. I mean, he was gonna kill you. He almost killed you. She shouts on the other end, exasperated. and while you don't doubt she's right for a second, the thought is anything but reassuring. We really lucked out there at the end. Had he realized what was going on, things could have ended badly for us. For me, you correct the staggered Labrador, though it matters little in the end. I mean, I suppose you're not wrong. I lucked out, didn't I? Then why does it still feel so hollow inside? You ponder aloud, silencing your handler in an instant. An outcome you immediately resent. You don't blame Natalie for what she did. Not really. She did her best to help you, even before everything went south. Did what she could to get you out of there, while there was still hope. If only you'd listened! How you feel now is normal. It's how anyone would feel in your position. Natalie whispers into your ears, still trying as hard as she can to keep you whole. I know you're afraid, and anxious, and a lot of things really, but just give it time, alright? Mary's coming your way as we speak. She's almost there. She'll fix everything, I promise. Now there's a nice thought, if you've ever heard one. If for a moment, you can almost imagine the feline in your head, sweeping away all your misdeeds with a broom or a vacuum, concealing them from the world, just as you now do yourself. But the truth is, it's even harder to believe than a bottomless hole opening up beneath your feet and swallowing you whole. Another solution you'd be hard-pressed to refuse in your condition. All of a sudden, the sounds of a passing car break the monotony of your thoughts. It's not the first that drove by since you came here, but it is the loudest by a far margin. And by the sound of it, the biggest and the fastest. And it's only growing closer by the moment. Something large and imposing, a cross between a van and a limousine, invades the neighborhood with the ferocity of a hungry beast, only to come at an abrupt stop in the middle of the street opposite your refuge. Its dark exterior and even darker windows make it impossible to discern what lies inside, but its impetuous arrival leaves little doubt as to its purpose. Hi, Mary. Hi. You're looking good today. We're gonna die. Again. The doors near the back blast open like a rocket, and out comes a woman more tried than you thought possible. Her eyes dart around the place for a split second, looking for someone, and have no trouble finding what remains of you in your obvious and distasteful hiding place. Get in. She sounds like your mother did when she knew you'd messed up somewhere. Angry, serious, disappointed. And though your mind is still replaying the events from earlier and can barely process her command, your body, driven by another kind of repetition, obeys. The first step is the hardest, the second just as much. But then, like a rat scurrying in a sewer, you wiggle out of your hideaway, run across the street like one would when it rains, and hide away inside her monstrous vehicle. Inside, it feels as though you stepped into a laboratory room, rather than a van. There's enough space to comfortably move around with your head held high, as well as a large chair reminiscent of the one in your apartment that Mary wastes no time ushering you into. As the doors close behind you, you strap yourself to its mechanisms, like you've done many times before, and ready yourself for whatever is to come. Out of the corner of your visor, the one that still works, you spot Mary approaching you with an anxious look in her eyes and a certain heaviness to her steps. The vehicle's sudden movement pushes her slightly off balance, but she quickly regains it as soon as everything stabilizes. Meanwhile, the van drives on, slower than before, heading to destinations unknown. As the woman grows closer, you briefly ponder what you could say to her, how best to explain your reckless behavior. But your inquiries return nothing but blanks, as though even your computerized mind couldn't conjure an excuse. Thank you for the help, Natalie. I'll take it from here. No answer comes from within your head, and the silence tells you all you need. The link between you and your handler is quickly severed without a word, leaving you alone at the sole mercy of your creator. Alright then, let's begin. The woman whispers, calm and composed, inspiring even more fear out of you than you could have possibly imagined. Though you expected harsh words to immediately erupt out of Mary's mouth, her first order of business appears a fair bit more practical. Try to hold still if you can. I'll let us move along quicker. At the snap of her finger, something begins to move behind your chair. Something fast and noisy and numerous. It's unclear what they are at first, so disparate they are from anything you've ever seen, but eventually their polygonal, almost abstract features and ability to levitate off the ground clues you into their true nature. Drones. Smaller than the ones you're accustomed to for sure, and a lot more delicate in their movements. Armed with tiny scalpels, forceps, and the occasional blowtorch, they quickly surround you like a team of medics at an operating table. Though the sight is slightly off-putting at first, it becomes less frightening as you remember something you once heard the feline say. Smaller, cheaper, and more compact than ever. You mumble to yourself, inspiring a faint smile on the woman's face. Ah, you remember that broadcast? Then I'm sure you understand why I'm letting them handle the procedure and not myself. They're the latest model, so you can expect a few hiccups in their performance. However, it will still hurt on occasion. She turns to face you once again, a dead serious look in her eyes. You're still in time to turn off your pain receptors, if you so desire. I know you had your reservations earlier, but, well, just something to consider. You briefly give it some thought. Through what little brain power you can muster, truth be told, you're more surprised by the fact Mary's affording you this chance than by the opportunity itself. Though you're a bit tempted at first, it doesn't take long for you to reach a foregone conclusion. No point hiding from this. I've been through worse already. Besides, I deserve this. The scientist hesitates for a moment, but ultimately shows no opposition to your decision. Very well. Then let's get this underway. In but a flash, the drones begin to swarm your body with ruthless efficiency, like a squadron of ants. All over your skin you feel cuts and burns and welds, one after another with no rest in between. Meanwhile, the chair beneath you does what it can to ease the sensation and keep you still, occasionally joining in to repair what it can. You could almost liken it to a spa treatment of sorts, were it not for... Ow! The pain. Ow? What's that all about? Don't tell me all it took was a little hurt to get you to walk back all that bravado just now. Mary pokes fun at your condition with a half-hearted smile, adding insult to your already extensive injuries. And while you don't blame her for that in the least, this one, something about her demeanor leaves you dithering. You don't seem upset, at least not as much as you should be. The woman pauses for a second, wondering how best to answer you. No doubt thinking the same things Natalie did when she was trying to reach you earlier. I am upset. I'm upset seeing you like... That's not what I'm talking about! You interrupt her before she can dodge the topic, as she is one to do. Are you still gonna act like my feelings and freedoms are more important than anything else? Even now? I almost died today, Mary, over nothing. Decades of research in pursuit of your goals, billions of dollars to create this body, and I almost threw it all... You threw yourself into the fray to rescue two people you cared about. Should I be upset about that? Shouldn't you? You question, clueless and confused. Don't you feel even the slightest bit angry with me? Over what I did? Over what I could have lost? Over me almost dying again? Mary hesitates to answer, evidently seeing some reason in your words. Nevertheless, would you be happier if I was? Would it make you feel better? So she isn't. Never before has an answer felt so dumbfounding to hear. I really don't know what to think anymore. It feels like no matter how many mistakes I make, you'll still greet me with a smile and act all reassuring like. Do you really care about this product so little you'll let me get away with anything? All over your writhing body, the drones work tirelessly to fix you in spite of your outbursts, yet somehow, the pain their movements cause feel insignificant compared to the hurt you carry within. Of course, that's saying nothing of the offended look on the woman's visage. Is that what you believe you made? A mistake? She asks aloud, quieting you in an instant. That's your decision, you know? Only you can decide whether what you did was right or wrong, whether you feel any regret over your actions or not. So tell me, do you? Oh, hiya. She shoots an inquisitive glare your way, and you find yourself whimpering under her gaze. Turning away from her, you start to wonder whether you truly do feel any regret over what you did, or merely feel as though you should. Results, once again, are inconclusive. I suppose I could chastise you for acting so rashly, for going against Jasper's wishes, for putting Pandora's reputation in jeopardy, and all of my work for that matter, our work, she says, her anger mellowing out into indecisiveness, and then hardening once more into sheer conviction. But then what am I doing here? Why am I making synthetics? Why engineer technology that lets people live again if all they can live is in a bunch of cages? I know I'm risking a lot by letting you roam free, that I'm risking everything for so little gain. But I'm not going to compromise the principles, the vision this project founded on simply to ensure its success. There'd be no point in doing all this otherwise. She explains, confident as only she can be, her gaze filled with as much outrage as forgiveness. Besides, how am I meant to be angry when I couldn't be more proud? Every time you risk your life for someone, every time you forsake the rules in favor of what you believe is right, only shows me I made the right call when I gave you that body, giving you that life. And that's one choice I won't ever regret. So she says, an answer as inspiring as it is disappointing. Honestly, I wonder what exactly I need to do before you stop bending over backwards trying to defend me. You mumble with a faint smile, not feeling proud of yourself in the least. The one on the feline's visage, on the other hand, is much more genuine. Wow. You're just talking like Jasper. I swear, that date you two went on really messed you up. Despite your best efforts, you end up chuckling at her quip, sudden as it is. You hardly have time to complain before she continues. Besides, it's not like you're purposefully going out of your way to try and sabotage us. You're just trying to live your life and stand by your friends. It's not their fault. It's not your fault they're involved in all this. Weird. Fucking bullshit. She mumbles to herself, likely unsure of how else to describe the situation, earning another hesitant chuckle out of you, which she wastes no time capitalizing on. There you go. Finally making some progress cracking through that shell. Oh my god, really? That's your priority right now? Making me feel better? You reply, embittered over the way your friends treated you thus far. On one hand, you're relieved the cat keeps having your back no matter what. But on the other, thinking back to what you just did, you can't help but feel angry over how nonchalantly she's handling your case. You went to deny cats? What happened? Oh, come on! Are you going to keep that frown on your face all day? Whatever did you do to act so pissy today that you didn't already do last time? She casually asks as though she didn't know the answer already. And the infuriating way she says it is enough for all your anxiety and insecurities to spring out of your lips. How about killing a guy for starters? A synthetic, no less? How's that not concerning enough? How does that not make you mad? How does that not make you hate me? You shout out loud, waves of pain coursing through your body at every turn as you struggle against your chair. It really doesn't make any sense. Why would Mary not bat an eye at your actions today? Is she really that cold-hearted? Whatever you were thinking, it quickly dissolved into dust as a familiar smirk appeared on the feline's lips. Killing a guy? Come on, Isaac. Who exactly do you take me for? You really think we did such a sloppy job creating synthetics all it takes is a bomb to the face to kill one? After all the lengths we went through to let you live a second time, no less. For the first time since this entire conversation began, you lay perfectly still with your mouth agape, and no doubt to the unspoken relief of the drones working on you if they were capable of such a thing. You're kidding, right? My tail exploded right in his face. I wrecked that guy's body beyond recognition. I watched the life ebb from his eyes. Yeah, that's a good description of what happened, alright. Although there's no need to tell me all that. I mean, seriously, who do you think came up with that half-baked plan in the first place? She asks, leaving you completely flabbergasted. And she's clearly not done either. As I've already told you many times, synthetic bodies are more durable than they might seem at first glance, which is already quite a lot. But I assure you, a synthetic's black box is even more durable still. It would take some serious specialized drilling tool to even put a dent in one. The only reason our little tactic worked as well as it did was because his prototype body was made with lesser materials. That, and we got very lucky. I see. Though it's hard for you to accept given the sight you bore witness to today, her explanation makes a great deal of sense, especially considering everything you know about synthetics so far. But still, I saw him lose consciousness. I saw him die. What you saw was the connection between his body and black box dwindling out. Most likely. Nothing too concerning, I assure you. I mean, wouldn't that kill him too? The fuel that powers that black box is stored in the main body. If that connection is severed, then the black box goes into hibernation mode. A sort of dreamless sleep, if you will. It's not pretty, I'll admit. It's total sensory deprivation at its worst, like floating in a black void, only capable of the most basic thoughts, unaware of how long you've even been there. But at least you're still alive, and the lessened energy expenditure means you can survive for upwards of 2 to 3 days. Enough time for us to swoop in, snatch that cretin's black box, and stuff him in a new body. One without arms, or legs, or much of anything, really. Sounds utterly terrifying, you must admit. To the drone, you shiver enough so to make you shiver in your seat, to the drone's annoyance. I guess that makes sense. So that's what that cleanup crew Natalie mentioned earlier was for. Pretty much. And speaking of, they should arrive on the scene in a few minutes if they're not late. They'll relocate all the unconscious fighters to less visible areas of town and erase all evidence that a fight even took place. And of course, they'll secure what remains of that synthetic weirdo as well. Once his black box is back at the labs, we can place him in a new temporary body and begin interrogating him. Interrogating him? Oh, you know. Figuring out who he is, how he got that body, and why he's collaborating with those men. I'm sure it'll be a very slow and painful process. Damn, they're gonna put him in an iPad. Yes! No, 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 no. Don't put him in an iPad. I have just the thing to put him in. I'm turning on the webcam. I have just the thing to put him in. Let me grab it.
It's time to drink water.
A spare microphone.
It's time to drink water.
You really think I only have
water.
this microphone? No, I got two.
It's time to drink water.
I also got this bad boy. Just put him in a microphone and then scream at him for 20 minutes. I'm gonna keep holding this microphone. It's XLR, it's nice, but the one I'm using is USB and easier. I'm sure it'll be a very slow and painful process, and if it isn't, I'll make it so. Shit, wrong button. He can only hear. Yes. Well, that's just dreadful, seeing how incredibly difficult it is to get on this woman's bad side. You can't help but wonder just how awful a time that sicko's going to have under duress from her. That doesn't sound particularly legal, honestly, and I'm not only referring to the torture. Oh, come on. As if anything that those men did to you and to your friends was in any way legal either. What goes around always comes around. Or would you prefer we leave anything to chance and risk you and your friends' safety? I suppose not. Fact is, as questionable as Mary's methods may seem at first glance, they're also very much necessary. Well, in that case, put him in an audio interface. Hi, Amethyst. Yep, put him in an audio interface. So that way, he can still hear, and he can also talk. And then just scream into his microphone and mute him. At the very least, that's what it seems like. Once more, Mary's persuasion skills have you folding in no time. Perhaps the scariest part of her whole spiel was how readily you agreed to her viewpoint. Once it became clear that you hadn't murdered that monster. See? No. An audio interface has an output, which means it can output to speakers, which means he can also talk. How you readily agreed to her viewpoint once it became clear that you hadn't murdered that monster. I guess I'm just a little shaken by everything that happened today. As you should be. It's not every day that something this complicated happens. And it's not something the average person's trained to handle either. But the hope is that you won't have to deal with this anymore once we find out more about what's... In the midst of her speech, Mary's interrupted by a loud melody playing on repeat, coming in from her coat's pockets. Without delay, she quickly shoves her hand in there and swiftly extracts what seems to be a very familiar tablet. Ah, there you are. What's the situation? She asks as she takes hold of the device with both hands, so as to hone it on her face. Her familiar tone of voice suggests she's speaking to a friend, but it's quite clearly a colleague on the other end of the line. She really does seem to treat every member of her team with a great deal of respect. Though for whatever reason, her voice loses most of its cordiality not long after. Excuse me. You can't hear what is being said on the other end of the call, but it's enough to send a shiver down the woman's spine. You've got to be kidding me. How did they... Ugh! She stomps her feet down with remarkable anger as she suddenly turns around as if looking for some privacy. Great. Just what we needed. What do you mean, what do you do? Secure the perimeter, scrub the area of any evidence, and see if you can't find any of those fuckers hiding somewhere. And call me once you're done, alright? I'll be in touch. Without another word, she abruptly ends the call. From what little you can see, it appears she's trying to stuff the tablet back in her coat, but her anger's making it more difficult than it needs to be. Once she's done with that whole endeavor, she practically spins around faster than a moving car. From this angle, the infuriated expression on her visage is all the more apparent. What was that? You ask, already dreading the answer. That was from the cleanup crew, wasn't it? Oh, what did they say? Her eyes briefly turn to face the ground while her hands tighten into fists. Eventually, you're not the only one anxious over what was said. It's gone. Gone? You mean the synthetic? I mean everything! The body, the black box, and all those morons that were with him too. Like, nothing ever happened. Ooh, that's bad. That's bad. She concludes, her anger morphing into clear irritation. Well, I guess that's not entirely true. Fountain's still trashed beyond recognition, and the place still reeks of a fight. But within those things, what the hell are we supposed to gather about those people? She asks aloud, restless and disappointed. How the hell does something like this even happen? How do so many hooligans and a synthetic just disappear out of thin air? I don't know, you think they recovered from their injuries and walked it off? Or maybe their reinforcements arrived before your colleagues did? You suggest, just as shocked about the situation as your friend. But then, right as the reality of the situation begins to hit you, is something else the scientist said earlier begins prodding in the back of your mind, and the shock quickly turns to concern. Wait a moment! Mary turns to look at you, quickly spotting the furrowed brow on your visor, even in the midst of her ponderings. Earlier on, you said that Synthetic's body was a prototype made of inferior materials. Yeah, what about it? It's just... How could you tell? I doubt you knew that off the top of your head. It's hardly evident. He looked nearly the same as I did. So how did you know his body was different even before you helped neutralize him? You question her, having deduced there's something Mary's not telling you about this, or at the very least something she forgot to mention. And indeed, the rapid shift in her facial expression admits to her deception even before her words can. I did know it off the top of my head. I knew at the moment I laid eyes on that chassis. I knew, because one of the ones that were stolen from us last week. For the briefest of moments, it's as if the whole world stopped moving on its axis. Silence permeates the air, and not a thought crosses either of your minds. Oh, you've got to be kidding me! You mutter to yourself, once more clueless as to what to think. Yeah, that's what I thought too. But you said it wasn't a problem! You said only Pandora could make synthetics. And we can. At least, we should. Her voice begins to falter as her confidence dwindles away, replaced by countless doubts and even more fears. Indeed, this is worse than even you thought. It's a detail you barely acknowledged during your confrontation earlier, but now strikes you as of the utmost importance. If Pandora didn't create that monster, who did? And how? Honestly, I'm at a loss for words. How would you explain what's happening right now? The woman asks, mostly to herself, though it's not long before you hazard a guess yourself. Well, maybe it was a replica then? An imitation! Remember when we talked about AIs using synthetic-like bodies before? This could be one such case. It could, but as much as I'd like that to be the case, it's just not likely. I'm sure you realize this as well. You've interacted with both C grades and B grades in the past, after all. You know what they're like, and that Max was anything but. And the only A grade on the planet is sealed away in some facility or other. It was certainly worth a shot, but it was just as certainly missed. While they're somewhat comparable on the surface, Max's sadism and violent tendencies felt a lot more sincere and coherent than whatever nonsense Arthur was on about. Meanwhile, Mary moves on to more sensible if worrisome explanations. Could there have been a leak? A double agent on the team, perhaps? No, that's ridiculous. I vet every single person I work with. I trust them. At the very least, I trust someone would have realized if their colleague was giving us the finger. Ugh! Mary shouts aloud as she stomps her foot on the ground once again. Though she appeared on the verge of tears at one point, she has since mustered her remaining resolve and wears it proudly in her eyes. This is worthless. We're not learning anything here. We'll figure this out sooner or later. Until then, we should... Do what? You question her just as loudly as she spoke just now. You can't possibly drop this matter here. Are you serious? A murderous synthetic is on the loose, unaccounted for, and we don't even know where he came from. This is not a topic you leave for later. You don't get to weasel your way out of this like you do everything. You shout, your resentments toward the feline rising to the surface like foam in a stormy sea. Then tell me, just what am I supposed to do? She asks, seemingly sincere. I don't know! Figure it out now! Before that guy comes back! You whisper under your breath, only now realizing how much that thought scares you. It's true that you survived your brush with death today, but it could have just as easily gone the other way. And nothing would have been able to bring you back this time. If you encounter that Max again or another synthetic who wished you harm, would you be so lucky? Or would you fall like the leaf in the wind you are? I'm scared. You mutter to yourself as your vision grows teary. I don't know what's going on anymore. I don't know what to think. I don't know what to do. I just wanted to live my life in peace, and it almost cost me what little life I have left. And not just me. Other people too. You turn to face the woman, a half-hearted scowl on your visor. And then you tell me to let you handle things, but you're just as clueless as I am. You say everything's fine, but it's not. Everything's falling apart. Jasper's against me, the owners are against me, the FBI's against me, and now even those guys are against me. You raise your hands in exasperation, not knowing what else to call them. Feels like the whole world's against me some days. Even your family, even your friends. Even Pandora, even Natalie. Even Mary. Which is precisely why I can't let you brave all this alone. The scientist says, slowly picking apart at the deafening silence in the van. I get it. It's rough, believe me, I know. It's not just what happened today that broke you, is it? You've been feeling like this for a while now. The dreams you carry with you, the fears, the responsibilities hanging on your shoulders, you can feel them, can't you? You look at the world around you and see how big and scary it is, and wonder, how am I supposed to handle all this? She asks aloud, but it could have just as easily been you saying that now. As always, Mary knows exactly how to make you feel better than you do yourself. And the truth is, you can't. No one can, not even I. But that's why we're not alone in this world. Why we're all sharing this big hunk of rock together, so we can cover each other and make this scary world less scary. I got a whole company behind me, thousands of colleagues who have my back, people I trust with my own life, and you. She takes a few steps forward until she's practically hovering above you, until you can see her beaming eyes just as clearly as you would the sun. You have me. You have all of us. We're here for you, Isaac. We're ready to help you just as much as you help us. We'll figure out a way out of this. All of this. Faced with such overwhelming enthusiasm, you end up cracking a faint smile yourself, if only out of respect for the woman's unwavering confidence even now. And you're right. I am hand-waving a lot of things away, and it does feel like a cheap cop-out. But I don't have time to panic. I don't have the patience for it either. My team relies on me, and so do you. The last thing anyone wants is for me to waste time crying over problems I can't solve. So let's start gathering information, shall we? Starting with every facility that houses transition equipment, and have every scientist and technician who worked on one. I'll have tabs on everything and everyone in no time. I can get this started right away while you finish repairing over there. And in the meantime, we can start thinking of more ways to get on top of the situation. Good enough for you? She cheekily asks as she beams at you once more, spurring a much more confident reaction out of you. Yeah, that's a start. I'm sorry. I guess I'm the one who panicked. I didn't mean to shout at you like that. It's quite alright. I know I've failed you in many regards. You have a right to be upset about that. Maybe. But still, Your digital lips curl into a bittersweet smile, taking even the woman aback for a moment. At least you're trying. Under the weight of your honesty and forgiveness, Mary's lips bend into a genuine smile. Not one born of self-assurance, but rather thankfulness and guilt. I'm really sorry. I wish I could have spent more time with you these days, instead of leaving you to fend off for yourself like that. You don't deserve to feel helpless and abandoned. Not by me, not by anyone. It's fine. You have a job and a commitment. I'm just a small part of it all. Small, maybe, but not unimportant. Not in the least. So tell you what, why don't we spend some time together for a change, like we used to when you first came to? It doesn't need to be anything fancy, and I bet you've had enough of boring lectures and business meetings by now. We can keep it casual for a change. No Pandora, no FBI, no whatever that was, just two friends hanging out for dinner. I love that. It'd mean a lot to me. Are you certain this is what you want to do, though? What happened today is pretty important, to say the least. Shouldn't you be focusing your attention on that instead? Oh, trust me, I'll have my hands full with that before I know it. But there's no reason for me to get involved right away. I can let my colleagues lay the groundwork while I focus on you. Your mental well-being is just as essential as anything else, and if I can't help even one person, how am I supposed to help everyone? I suppose that makes sense. You concede, unable to muster any other answer before her insistence. Awesome! Your treat, right? Been a while since I've been to your place anyway. Last time was a bit hectic, but I'm sure tonight will be different. Wait, my place? Why my place? Wouldn't it be better to go to a restaurant or movie theater or any kind of place? Why, aren't you a player? Haven't you already got similar things scheduled with Natalie and Jasper? As nice as those options sound, I'd rather we keep it quiet for tonight. I don't know about you, but it's been a hell of a rough day for me. Even before everything went south. Yeah, I know what you mean. Odd jokes aside, you can see where Mary's coming from with her suggestion. Small and uninteresting though it may be, your apartment is probably as safe a place as it gets right now. You were already planning on heading home before Apollo went missing anyway. If anything, bringing home a friend with you is all the more incentive to head there right away. After you're done getting patched up at least, which might take a fair bit longer than expected given how much you moved around while you were ranting earlier. Alright then, I'll arrange for the car's AI to drive us to your place. We can wait nearby until you're done resting if that's good with you. Sounds as good a plan as any. But before you head there, Mary asks as you avert your eyes, more than a little embarrassed. Could you help me look for my groceries while we're heading there? I think I dropped them somewhere while looking for my friend earlier. Really now? Your groceries? Yeah, I kinda need them for tonight's dinner and all. The woman massages her temples with her fingers, a complicit grin half hidden beneath her hands. You know it'd be faster to just go buy some new ones, right? Or order takeout? And spend even more money? Come on, Mary! Just how loaded do you think I am? The woman laughs at your unexpected quip, though you make sure to follow up with a more serious explanation right after. I don't know. Just feels kind of embarrassing to know I left a full bag of food out there somewhere. If I don't find it right away, we can do another grocery run real quick, but since I'm going to be stuck to this chair for a while anyway, might as well. Alright then, kid. I'll see what I can do. The woman agrees without a fight, much to your relief. Make sure to give her the details of your last known address before you rush after Apollo. Then let her head to the front of the vehicle to impart her commands to the AI. Her departure leaves the room quieter than before, save for all the noises emanating from your broken body. Indeed, it's as if she took most of the nearby colors out along with her as well. Now that you have a moment to yourself, all drones aside, you finally have a chance to realize just how clear your mind is compared to half an hour earlier. It's far from perfect, mind you, and there are still plenty of questions and concerns left to address. But with Mary around for once, you no longer have to tackle them alone. Jeez, how does she even do it? I was this close to losing my mind just now, and she somehow pulled me out of the gutter and right onto my feet. Talk about a miracle worker. For once your stomach dares not argue upon you using that word. There's just no other way to describe your friend after everything she's did for you thus far. You're truly happy to have met her, despite everything that happened since. You're glad you finally have a chance to talk to her face to face, after more than a week apart. With a clear head on your shoulders and no one else getting in the way, perhaps today's the day you finally get to know the scientist a little better at last. The door to your apartment opens slowly and just as quietly as if afraid that the sound could wake up the dead. You hesitate to step inside, your groceries swinging wildly under your arm, cautious of any hidden threats lurking just beyond the furniture. Deep down, you know this is a bit of an overreaction. Needless panicking that needn't be there. But after everything you went through today, you'd rather just not take the risk, even if it means being paranoid within the confines of your own home. Once you've made sure that your abode is just as you left it, you exhaled a loud sigh of relief. Another day where you get to return home in one piece. You never thought you'd feel so reassured from such a simple thought. Even while you were human, and your body was frailer than ever, you always took your security for granted, and never once questioned how blessed you were for making it through each day. It took you becoming a synthetic to finally learn. Hello? Are you done admiring the floor over there? Ha! Yay! The groceries! We love groceries. Mary interrupts your endless musings with the knowing grin, letting her lean figure linger in the doorway for as long as she needs to steal your attention. Now then, if my shining knight's done securing his kingdom, may I come in? Yeah, of course. Make yourself at home. Woman clearly has no need of your permission, considering she's the one who bought the apartment for you in the first place. Nonetheless, she steps inside once you give her the all clear, like any other guest. Though she's been here before, for some reason the thought of your maker stepping inside your home tonight feels rather embarrassing in a way. Well, what's the matter? You've been staring at me for a while now, she asks in her usual faux flirty way as she realizes you're spacing out again. Oh, nothing. I was just taking in your new clothes is all. I didn't have a chance to comment on them earlier, but I like them. Ah, I see. Why, thank you. Last time I visited, I couldn't help but feel a little cold. I never spent much time up in the mountains, so I was somewhat unprepared. Well, it is December now. It's only bound to get colder from here. You wouldn't be surprised if it started snowing soon either. With how finicky the weather gets around these parts, it could go either way. Hence why I thought a change of clothes might be in order. I figured I might be passing by again one of these days, so I had Natalie help me find an outfit for the occasion. How do I look? Great. Stunning even. It really suits you. The words leave your lips faster than you can think them, a genuine smile forming on your visor as you do. But of course... Stunning, huh? Aw, you're such a sweetheart. Honestly, I had you pegged as the shy type when I first met you. Who knew you'd turn out to be such a lady killer? Leave it to Mary to make things awkward for you. Lady killer? I'm literally just complimenting you. And that's a very tough skill to master, you know. You'd be surprised how often people fumble over themselves trying to impress their... I'm not trying to impress anyone. You're like 3 times my age. And like, way more than that if you consider the time I've been a synthetic. Wow. Way to bring down the mood, kid. Way to bring down the mood. Though the woman has every right to be angry given how impolite it is to remind a lady of her age, you can tell she's only playing around with you. Which is quite impressive given you're still trying to recover from the shock from earlier. Having overcome the initial embarrassing icebreaker, Mary lets her gaze wander through the room, inspecting it from top to bottom like an art gallery. Been a while since I've last been here indeed. I didn't recall this room being so pleasant to the eye. Then again, that might be because I hardly had a moment to enjoy it, what with that everything that went down that day. Yeah, things seem to go down pretty often these days. Way too often. The perks of being a synthetic, I suppose. An awkward silence follows for a moment, only for Mary to try and ignore it. Anyway, I gotta say, I love what you did to this place. It looks wonderful. Oh, thanks. Glad you like it. Although I don't think I can really take credit for this. Not when it was your team that ordered all the furniture for me, and Bradbury was the one who set it all up. Upon hearing your words, Mary shakes her head in seeming disappointment, a defeated look in her eyes. Right, of course. How could I forget? She mumbles to herself as she flops on your top of your sofa, her gaze aimed squarely at the ceiling. Did I say something wrong? No. Well, maybe? But it's not just you. The woman sighs as she turns to face you. Just realizing I'm not really doing a good job improving your mood. Icebreakers really aren't my forte. So that's it. You whisper to yourself, not denying that assertion in the least. Even so, it's my fault if things aren't working. really should try and be over what happened already. Or at least pretend to be over it. You don't need to pretend. Not to me. She speaks, her gaze and tone of voice having hardened somewhat. Almost as if she were chastising you. Though, of course, it only lasts a moment. Tell you what. Why don't we just get the evening underway? I believe the best way to get past all the sadness and moping is to actually do it. I guess sounds good to me. Out of context. Out of context. What did you have in mind? Mary makes as if to think it over, but you can tell she's already got a few ideas in her head. How about some good food for a change? If you don't mind, we just get started on dinner a little early. Nobody thinks better on an empty stomach, and I'm actually kind of curious to see how you behave behind the stove. Now that's something you can get behind. Maybe cooking for Mary is just what you need to stop thinking about all that nasty stuff from earlier. At least, you hope things will actually be that simple. Well, we certainly have a lot of choices. I bought a few boxes of pasta, condiments, veggies, some chicken breasts, a little bread. It's a great deal of ingredients for sure, but you find your creativity a bit lacking at the moment. You aren't well versed in cooking for guests, and the last thing you want to make is to make something. I see. The scientist mumbles to herself as she snatches the bags from under her arms and begins perusing them at her leisure. Cheese, eggs, what looks like snacks, and ooh, ground pork. She exclaims as she pulls out a handful of boxes. As she pulls a handful of boxes of it from out of your bags, throwing a nervous chuckle out of you. Yeah, I was planning on making meatballs with those sometime soon. Got inspired by a friend of mine, actually. But now that I think about it, we could also make some nice burgers with those. You get what you want, cats. You get what you want, burger. Yes! It's a bit of an obvious suggestion, that much you know already. But the scientist seems quite receptive to it, fortunately. Burgers, huh? Sounds good to me. Really? Are you sure? Yeah, I don't see why not. It's been a while since I last had them anyway. I trust you already know the recipe. She whispers at you in a mocking tone, earning a nervous chuckle out of you. Yeah, don't worry, I'll take it from here. You just relax and make yourself at home. Oh, you needn't tell me twice. You have fun in there too, alright? Of course. Be right back. After gathering the ingredients the feline carelessly displaced in her search, you swiftly take off to the kitchen, leaving your guest alone in the living room. You're not as accustomed to this room as the rest of your apartment, but moving around isn't much of an issue. After stacking the food you bought into your fridge, minus what's required for your dinner, you get to work right away. First, you start by rounding up the ground pork and seasoning it to perfection, using just the right amount of salt, pepper, and... why not put some soy sauce in there? You turn to face Mary right away, more startled by her outlandish proposal than by her sudden appearance. Soy sauce? I mean, I think I bought some earlier, but do you usually season your burgers with soy sauce? After salting them? Nope. Can't say I've ever tried that before. What is wrong with you? I see. You can't help but mumble to yourself, astonished. The feline's suggestion is so unusual and concerning that you almost don't notice her messing around in the kitchen, opening every drawer she can find and fiddling with the contents therein. Ooh, what's this? Ground cayenne peppers. Yeah, I bought some a while ago to put in a soup or something. Figured it wouldn't be so bad now that I'm a synthetic and... throw them in the mix! Oh, hiya. Welcome. Oh god, it's going to be another shoichi. It's going to be another shoichi. The woman makes as if to dump the whole container into your meat, but you stop her at the last moment. Are you nuts? Do you even know how much these things sting? I've heard the stories, yeah. I just like to experiment is all. Mary, do you have a death wish? Experiment? What? You're gonna throw some chocolate in that mixture next? Or vodka and garlic chips? You ask, the tone of your voice rapidly changing from outrage to pure fear. You know, now that you mention it... I'm not caffeinated enough to deal with this. I'm not caffeinated enough to deal with this. See, if it was potato chips and ice cream, that'd be different. If it was potato chips and ice cream, that'd be different, because that shit's delicious. Potato chips with some Neapolitan ice cream. It's really good. Haven't had it in a couple years, though. I should get some soon. Chips and ice cream. What? No! No! That is a sin against God, cats. Cats, that is a sin against God. You're going to hell for that. You're gonna go to hell for doing that. That is a sin against God. Oh my god, fries and a Wendy's Frosty. I need to try that. You know, now that you mention it, she whispers, a devious grin already forming underneath her lips. This explains a lot, actually. Far more than you wanted explained, truth be told. Though you can't dwell on the thought for long, as the feline's already on her way to make your meal even more improbable. Hold on. 5 leaves of sage? Are you trying to make a vegan burger or something? I just like the flavors all. It's no biggie. At least mince them a little. And what are you doing with that now? Just trying out something I've seen in a video once. Apparently, if you stuff the patty with cheese, it comes out super juicy. Okay, Mary, apparently we're babysitting you. Are you trying to kill Isaac? You do that with American cheese, not blue cheese. That one's gonna melt right out of the burger. Reigning in Mary is as difficult an endeavor as it is pointless. The woman prances around her kitchen like an actual kitten, crafting chaos everywhere she goes. As reality that you've completely lost control of the situation settles in, you can only sigh in utter defeat. Is this your way of trying to get me to stop worrying about my health? By making me worry about yours? You ask in the midst of Mary's work, prompting her to stop for just a moment in order to address you. Well, I won't deny the thought is there. Are you serious? This could kill you! At least I don't have to worry about food poisoning. You're not sure you've reached that level of inedibility yet, but you know a bad idea when you see it in practice. Unlike Mary, it seems. Ugh, come on. Who in the world did you learn to be so stingy in the kitchen from? Didn't your parents teach you to be at least somewhat curious of new things? Well, the scientist's query gives you a bit of pause. It's so far out of left field it is, you find yourself pondering over the answer for far longer than you thought you'd be. No, not particularly, no. I mean, it's not like they didn't push me to study or learn more about the world, far from it. They just didn't want me to be reckless, I guess. My dad used to say that it's never what you know that kills you, it's what you don't. That as long as you know how something works, as long as you know the dangers, then you've nothing to fear. You hesitate for but a moment, while your gaze veers ever downward from the sudden weight of old memories. I guess he was wrong in the end. He died of cancer while I was in middle school. A disease we've known about for centuries, yet still can't do anything about. The gloomy mood begins to spread toward the feline's attempts of the room. Toward the feline's side of the room, though surprisingly, she doesn't immediately attempt to push it back. I'm sorry to hear that, she whispers, still trying to respect your feelings. No doubt familiar with the kind of sorrow you feel to this day. It's alright. It was forever ago. We've moved on, or at least we tried. We almost made it too, until, well, you know what. The woman stands near the stove in silence, waiting until you're finished to speak her mind. I don't think you ever really move on from stuff like that. It's the kind of baggage you never put down, for better or worse. But for as much pain as it causes and how long it haunts us, I think it's a good thing. In the end, important too. It's a reminder that our loved ones really did exist, that their lives mattered and still do. And as such, so must ours. Now it's your turn to listen. Humbled by the feline's wisdom as your vision grows slightly teary from all the emotions surging through you. Noticing the somber look in your eyes, Mary's quick to resume from where she left off. Regardless, I really am sorry to hear about your dad. You must have loved him a great deal. She makes as if to say something, but stops at the last moment and ponders on it some more. You're not sure what's going on in that head of hers. But soon enough, she interrupts the silence once again. Okay, hang on, I'm gonna do a thing. We're just gonna snooze the ads. Soon enough, she interrupts the silence once again. If I may ask, what was his name? She inquires, confusing you for the briefest of moments. Half expected her to try and veer away from this conversation, considering her intent. Not try and indulge in it even further. Even so, you see no reason not to be honest with her. Abraham. Abraham Asimov. I see. The woman mumbles, half lost in thought. Tell me about him. What was he like? Again, the question takes you by surprise, but then you find the words leaving your mouth faster than you can think them. Kind, respectful, present. He worked an office job in some company or other. When he was home, he was with me all the time. We talked pretty often and played and did sports, and on Sundays, he tried to teach me a little about his faith. His faith? Yeah, my parents were devout Christians. They taught me all about it in an effort to make me one, but I guess it never stuck. At least that wasn't all they did. Dad taught me how to study efficiently, how to dress well, how to cook. You glance for a moment at the devilish concoction Mary left to marinate on the table and shudder. Correctly, I mean. Ignorant of the worry in your eyes, Mary ponders your words with an absent look of her own. Christians. Now there's a word you don't hear every day. And you're saying both your parents were? Believers? Yeah, very. My dad's been one his whole life, and I think my mom just kinda married into it, I guess. Or maybe you're just misremembering is all, though it seems your friend doesn't mind the imprecisions in your recollecting either way. Interesting. Not at all what I expected. Usually the only religion you hear people preach about is hard work. That's what my parents indoctrinated me with anyway. Isn't that a good thing? To an extent, up until it turns into zealotry. You know, the moment when studying becomes less about learning and improving yourself and more about proving something. When money and prestige become goals in and of themselves and not means to an end. I think I get what you mean. I had quite a few teachers like that growing up. A couple relatives too. And I'd be lying if I said my parents didn't behave like that as well from time to time. But overall, I think they were better
It's
than
time
that.
to drink water.
They really
It's time
cared
to
about the
drink
things I
water.
was learning and the ways I was growing.
It's
They
time to
stressed
drink
the
water.
importance of being a good person above being a good student.
It's time to drink water.
You can't help but notice a faint look of regret in the woman's eyes as she hears your tale. No doubt thinking back to her own upbringing, and then a glimmer of something more, which disappears faster than you've noticed it. Seems like you were taught well. Not that I'm surprised, of course. And what about your mother, if I may ask? What was she like? From your dad to your mom, Mary's awfully inquisitive tonight, it seems. Not that you mind at this point, of course. Well, Mom was really protective, I guess. And tried to make sure nothing was ever wrong with me. She made sure I was always on top of my studies and said my prayers before going to bed. She involved herself in every school I studied in until college and spoke often to my teachers to make sure I wasn't being bullied or anything. Involved yourself? You mean as a teacher? No, I mean as a parent. You know, organizing after-school activities with the faculty, helping out in organizing events, that kind of stuff. Ah, I see. And what did she do for a job? The feline asks, surprisingly invested in such trivial things. Unfortunately, your answer is nowhere near as interesting as she expected it to be. I think she didn't have one, actually. Didn't have one? Really? She replies, genuinely taken aback, prompting a swift response out of you. It's not that crazy, is it? I mean, stay-at-home moms and dads are definitely a thing. Not sure how common they are myself, but I'm not saying they aren't. I know they're a thing. It's just a little unusual for me, after all. Both my parents were always at work when I was younger, so I'm not very accustomed to this kind of lifestyle. You're not sure how to interpret this response from the feline, but you find your gaze sharpening somewhat nonetheless. Well, I assure you my mom was a hard worker herself, maybe even more than my dad. When she wasn't helping out at my school, she was keeping the house squeaky clean, and whenever I had trouble with my studies, she took time out of her day to help out. Whatever I wanted to do, she was the first to step in and help guide me through it. I honestly don't know where I'd even be without her. You pause for a moment as the pleasant memories begin to sour once again. We had our disagreements, of course. There were times when her presence felt pretty overbearing, to say the least. Didn't help how strict she was at home either. She had some kind of grudge against technology and tried to keep me away from smartphones and phones and computers for as long as she could. She even tried to get me to stop seeing a friend of mine once she found out I was playing video games at his place. Now that was an argument for the ages. Good grief, the scientist remarks, genuinely appalled. I figured you had a rough upbringing, but this? It wasn't rough, at least I wouldn't call it rough. Just complicated. You counter, not wanting your friend to get the wrong impression. I'm not going to claim it was all sunshine and rainbows, but it was home. My home. And for all their quirks and all their issues, I loved my parents. I still love my parents. I mean, I wouldn't be trying so hard to go back to my life if I didn't, would I? You mumble with an encouraging smile, much to Mary's unspoken relief. Yeah, I suppose you're right. Sorry about that, by the way. I didn't mean to get so invested in our conversation. Considering the subject matter, I tried to be a bit more thoughtful and formal than I usually am, but, well, that didn't last long. I don't mind that. I think it was nice of you to try and learn more about me. It means you really care. And that my old life probably isn't nearly as boring as I thought it was. The woman chuckles at your quip, clearly in agreement. And not by a long shot. In any case, I should thank you too. I know it took a lot for you to open up about this stuff. Truth be told, I can't help but feel a little responsible for what happened between you and your family. Had it not been for me and my selfish request, I wouldn't even be alive to patch things up with her. You end your thought for her, not wanting it to end any other way, earning an unsure sigh from your feline companion. Yes, I suppose that's also true. You're not going to let Mary take responsibility for that. Not this time. What happened was your fault. It was your choice that caused this divide. And it falls on you now to set it right. Well, now I apologize for dragging this for so long. I believe I've stolen enough of your time as it is. I'll let you get back to your work, lest we stay hungry all night. Yeah, probably about time I start putting something on the stove. I'll let you know when I'm done here. Does that mean you don't want me collaborating on your dish anymore? Yeah, I think I'd sooner go with Jasper on another date, as you like to call them. Once again, your brazen sense of humor only seems to inspire further laughter from your friend. That bad, huh? Alright. Point taken. Now I'll let you work in peace. Still, keep up the good work, okay? I don't doubt you'll be able to get on top of the situation soon enough. Both with your family and... With a final playful wink, Mary nudges her head toward the festering abomination you've left to rot on your kitchen table. With that, of course. You've all the time in the world now, after all. The woman comments in between her giggles as she disappears beyond the doorway, plopping herself once more onto your couch. You follow her with your gaze up until you physically can't anymore, at which time you focus instead onto the mess she left before you. You honestly don't know where to even begin salvaging this dish, if such a thing is humanly possible, especially amidst the dizziness that Mary's departure left among your thoughts. All the time in the world, she says. Her words seamlessly echo within the bounds of your mind, absorbing all other thoughts like voracious black holes. All the time in the world. As opposed to when I didn't. As opposed to everyone else. You sit opposite the scientist at the dinner table, already set and furnished as best as you could manage. Your meal sits squarely on the plate before you, quietly eyeing you as you mull over your thoughts. You have to assume it's become sentient at this point, as well as malicious and likely vindictive. Surprisingly enough, it's not as hideous looks or questionable aroma that has you on the verge of throwing up right now. It's the look of utter glee on the feline's face as she munches on the burger before her, treating it not too dissimilarly from how Jasper treated his food back at that restaurant. What? I don't know how much we have left. You have to assume she's been compromised too. Mmm. Mmm. She mumbles to herself as she chews her food in peace, and you can't discern whether it's a call for help or her dying cries. Then finally the truth. Wow. This is awful. She exclaims proudly as if she finally found the answer to a math problem that had her stumped for months. Oh yeah, I've been snoozing ads, by the way. Normally I don't do that, but I'm doing it now. She exclaims proudly as if she had finally found the answer to a math problem that had her stumped for months. I'm, glad you noticed. You reply more meekly, still astonished by what you're witnessing. Are you sure you don't want me to make you something else? Something a little more edible, perhaps? No, I think I'm good for now. She casually mumbles to herself in between a bite and another, then casually nods to your untouched plate and begins pondering something aloud. Are you not even going to try that? What? No, of course not! Why? Because it's awful! You said so yourself! So what? She asks, seemingly unperturbed. It might not be to my liking, but the flavor's definitely new to me. Yeah, no kidding. You reply, hoping that was the punchline to Mary's convoluted joke. Only to realize soon after that sarcasm never even crossed her mind. Come on, Isaac. Are you really that averse to risk? Do I look like it to you? Touché. She comments, bemused. But all sass aside, you reckon your friend was looking for a more thorough answer than that. Besides, it's not just because of what you said. I can clearly see it's not going to be my liking. Smell it too. I mean, I know these sensations are just a faithful recreation or whatever, but I'm not wrong for trusting my gut, am I? You ask, not really thinking too much of it. Yet clearly you're alone in that assessment, as the scientist answers your question with a great deal of seriousness. Your gut is certainly not wrong, and neither are you for following it. But tell me, you're going to be alive for possibly billions of years to come, unless you choose to dip out early, but let's say you don't. Are you going to spend all that time only eating things you think are going to taste good? Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of food you could potentially eat, but compared to the whole, it's practically insignificant. She makes a good point, though it's a bit hard to notice amid everything she said just now. Billions of years. Even though you fought for a second chance at life, the thought of actually living that long feels almost dreadful in a way. It's not just that it's an unfathomably long time, even to a computerized mind such as yours. Truth is, it also feels wrong somehow, like simply mulling this over is cause enough for concern. So instead of indulging in it any further, you quickly decide to shift your attention onto something else. Alright, fair enough. I just haven't explained why you'd subject yourself to that. I mean, I might have all the time in the world and all that, but you don't. At least not yet. So shouldn't you try to make the best of the time you have left as an actual human? Your query gives the woman pause for a moment, her absent-minded gaze rolling to the ceiling as she starts fiddling with her cutlery. At first you worry you might have been a bit too direct in your assessment just now. Then you realize she was only hardening herself to take another bite out of her unfinished meal. Frankly, I don't think that's even possible. She replies, and for a moment you don't know what to answer, and you're not even sure you understand what she means. Fortunately, it's not long before the feline notices the unsure look in your eyes and makes as if to explain herself. I mean, think about it. How many ingredients do you think there are out there? I don't know. Thousands? Tens of thousands? And how many combinations of those ingredients can you make? How many dishes can you realistically cook with them? Infinite? You stutter, unconvinced by your own answer, quickly realizing that it isn't without its faults. No, that can't be right. Even if we consider the ones that aren't exactly edible, it has to be a finite number. Which is still higher than the number of dishes a person could try within their lifetime, even if they tried something new at every meal. That's true, you mutter, and your heart once again slumps in your chest at the thought. Not like the feline's remotely done. And that's assuming you could even travel around the world freely so you could experience all the different specialties that are only available in certain places. But we both know that's not realistic. And even if it was, we're still forgetting something important. A lot of things, actually. Like what? Like all the ingredients we'll never be able to taste, the plants that'll never grow again, the animals that have gone extinct, and all the ones that only exist on other planets stranded several galaxies away. Can you imagine them? All the flavors that have been forgotten or never discovered, and likely never will. Only barely, nebulously, and again, That indistinct thought tugs at your heartstrings in a way you can't say is all too pleasant. Of course you can. You can or you will. That's what truly sets you apart from other people. You can think about this stuff now. You can worry about it. The average person can't. Or won't. I'm sure they notice the bottomless pit every so often. That realization that no matter what they do, they won't be able to try or do everything. And rather than confront it, they decide to ignore it. I don't know, Amethyst, she states matter-of-factly, and finally, you begin to understand what Mary's been trying to say ever since this conversation began. I can't snooze the ad anymore. So yeah, what was your question again? Why would I subject myself to all this? Because realizing there are some things we'll never be able to do in life is no excuse for never wanting to try at all. And because looking at that bottomless pit makes me want to fill it instead of running away in fear. Simply put, because I'm not lazy. And when you think about it, that's a pretty damn strong superpower, even compared to most abilities out there. Clearly, control over the elements means nothing when a punch is all it takes to knock you down. You, on the other hand, I doubt something as small as that could hold you back for long. You continue the joke, amusing your friend, though inside your head, your thoughts continue on another tangent. Mary isn't lazy and everyone else is. That's quite the harsh judgment to make of humanity. As broad a generalization as one could make, arguably. And while you can't say you know enough about the world to dispute that judgment anymore, you have to wonder what would lead someone to think it up in the first place. Have you always been like this? You inquire before long, before you've even realized what it is exactly you wish to ask for. Like what? Not lazy and all that, and in general the way you are now. You expected a straightforward answer, but that's clearly not the case. Mary's gaze almost appears to curve inward as she looks back to her past inside her head. Not always, no. Now, I suppose I've been this way for the majority of my life now. But if you could see me as a child, oh boy, you probably wouldn't recognize me. The me from back then was another beast entirely. You mean you were a troublemaker? I mean, I wasn't. You seriously think I'm not a troublemaker now? Fair point. Still, I'd like to know more. What were you like as a kid? You inquire again, curious like never before. You never had a chance to ask about the scientist in question. And you'd be lying if you said it hadn't been bugging you for a while now. We're going to stop it for the ad. Want to break from the ads? Do your no ads, dance cats. Yay! Besides, after all the questions she asked about your family a moment earlier, it's only fair she shares some stories about her own. And indeed, Mary seems to think so as well. Smart, studious, curious of anything and everything under the sun. A genius, if you will. The only kind you see once every few centuries, though I'm sure you could imagine it already. Uh-huh. I think you forgot humble somewhere in your description earlier. Hey, you're the one who asked what I was like. You don't get to complain now, kid. She chuckles to herself, spurring the same reaction in you, earning herself a few more seconds of respite. But even she knows she can't stall forever, and so she quietly resumes her unusual tale. Besides, I'm not fond of calling myself a genius in front of others, and indeed, I wasn't the one who started the trend. Neither did the doctor who helped deliver me, neither did the nurses or anyone else at that hospital. Yet somehow my parents just knew that there was something special about me. So they took me to a specialist, someone who prided herself in assessing young children before they can even string together sentences and such, and she confirmed every single hope they ever had. The test she administered scored me in the top 0.001% of kids, even those 5 times my age. I imagine they took quite a lot of pride in that. I sure didn't, for obvious reasons. Still, that's impressive. I think. Top 0.001% in what exactly? Learning ability, long and short-term memory, logical skills, that sort of thing. Again, nothing I really prided myself on back then, or now for that matter. To me, it was just being me. And of course, I only got better from there. I was an ebook devouring machine. My parents got me several of them every week, and I'd chew through them before they even had time to download new ones. And I'm not just talking fairy tales here, or at all for that matter. It was textbooks and manuals and encyclopedias all the way, up to and including high school and college level ones. Your parents gave you college level textbooks before you even went to school? What kind of parent even does that? The kind who wants to see their promising child get better and wiser every day, and I do mean every day. But that wasn't an issue to me. Believe it or not, I actually enjoyed that kind of life back then. Learning new things just inspired me to learn even more. Challenging myself was part of the fun. Part of the fun, or all of the fun? You ask, unable to hide the concern in your gaze from your friend. I mean, I'm not going to claim studying was all I ever did, even at such a young age, but for the most part, you're right. It was how I spent the majority of my time back then. Yikes. I can't imagine the kind of hell you went through in school with such an upbringing. Actually, the woman muses, mustering a certain veneer of pride upon her visage. Until college, I never set foot inside a school, for better or worse. Given the rate I was progressing at, my parents thought enrolling me in school would only slow down my progress. So they hired special tutors to homeschool me and hopefully accelerate my studies. Ah, that's right. I remember Nat saying something about that a while back. Wonder what it's like being homeschooled. Wasn't it boring with just you and the teacher around? Not at all. Less distractions meant more time for me to learn, and the tutors were alright. For a while. And pretty soon, however, even they started slowing me down, so we arranged for them to only come around to administer tests and such. Which I suppose were also part of the fun in their own way. Jesus Christ! Even though Mary's account of her early years is more or less what you'd imagined it to be, you're still shocked by what you hear. Between all this and the kitchen kerfuffle from earlier, she's painting quite the scary picture of herself indeed. And while most of it does come across as a bit of a humble brag, despite her best intentions, the subtle melancholy that permeates her words only makes her narration feel all the more authentic to you. I gotta ask, between the endless supply of ebooks and the special tutors, just how loaded were your parents? Woman ponders on your question a while, unsure how much she should even share about this topic, or perhaps questioning its importance altogether. Not nearly enough to afford all this by themselves, if that's what you're asking. I can't be too sure, but I'm fairly certain they took out a massive loan to finance my studies. But that didn't bother them for long, I imagine, not after I began to help pay it off. You helped pay off a loan? As a child? Yeah. Ever heard of the prize show Are You Smarter Than a 10-Year-Old? That was me. I was the 10-year-old. And the answer is no, by the way. I mopped the floor with those college kids so hard, people took for granted the show was staged. And it wasn't? Of course it was! They had to throw the contestants a couple bones sometimes, or no one else would have ever tried their hand at it. Right. Humble brag indeed, but not surprising all things considered. Anyway, I kind of aged out of that show soon enough, and I started appearing on a number of different broadcasts as their local little genius. We had journalists recording my studying regime, show hosts interviewing me, all that jazz. Got famous pretty quick and faded from the spotlight just as fast, but in the meantime, I probably earned my parents quite the sum. I was actually somewhat disappointed when that happened. I'd more or less gotten used to the film crews hanging around the house, and of course, participating in those game shows was its own kind of... Mary. Suddenly interrupt her, unable to keep listening to this any longer. I understand this might be crossing the line, and I'm really sorry if this offends you, but... You take a deep breath, hesitant, but already the words are flooding out of your mouth. It sounds like your parents were using you. Oh, shit. You regret your words as soon as you speak them, but you realize right away that there's clearly some truth to them. The woman's gaze softens for a moment, and for the first time since this conversation began, she turns to look away from you. Perhaps. Perhaps yes. I won't deny that they had as much to gain from my education as I did, and clearly they were thinking of more than just my future when they made me go through all that. I could see it in their eyes while they watched me on stage. I could read in their smiles whenever one of their friends or colleagues praised me. They were happy for me, yes, but they were also quite happy with themselves. Happy at the fame and notoriety I was bringing to their name. Is that why you still haven't told me anything about them? Because you resent them? You ask, once again cutting straight to the chase, earning soon enough a bone-chilling smile from the woman before you. Resent would imply I even care about them. A deafening silence falls in the living room. Finding no further enjoyment in her horrible meal, the woman stands up and begins heading toward the sofa, only stopping halfway to look pensively at the ceiling. Me and my parents had a purely transactional relationship. I procured them fame and fortune and self-satisfaction they craved. They provided me the means to live my life the way I wanted. Because I did what I want, even back then. My parents may have forced me into that life, but I lived it. And I lived it gladly. I don't resent the way I was raised. I certainly don't resent the opportunities it afforded me growing up. The fact of the matter is, I wouldn't be half the person I am today if I didn't go through what I did. And for that, I suppose I am grateful. But you clearly have no love for them, and it doesn't sound like they shared much of theirs with you either. And clearly, the woman interjects, tossing an empty glare at you like an invisible dart. I didn't need it. She speaks, colder than an automaton. You retreat further into your seat, briefly staggered by the piercing look in the scientist's eyes. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you relive these kinds of memories. It's alright. I know you didn't. Like I said, it's no big deal, and I totally understand why you'd be concerned about me and given everything I shared. Suddenly, she turns to face you once again, a more composed smile on her visage. You'll be glad to hear that I was saving a little detail for last. A small aside from all these tales of endless studies and emotionless parenting. I did say I wasn't entirely alone back then, didn't I? She asks, earning a confused look from you. I didn't? I really didn't? Well, fuck! No wonder you look so worried. Yeah, I was about to say. The woman sighs, looking rather disappointed in herself. See, this is why I'm always hesitant to talk about this stuff. I never know where to begin. But anyway, let's try to salvage this, shall we? Before you start booking me a therapist. Hang on. After quickly clearing her throat, Mary takes a few steps back and sits down on the table, opting to forego her old chair entirely. She's certainly getting comfortable around you. It's not like she's going to be the one cleaning those sheets tomorrow. In between all my studies and public appearances, I sometimes received visits. Not by any friends, because I didn't have any, and certainly not by my parents, because they were almost always busy. It was an old lady with skin rugged like a tree's, a voice like maple syrup, and a kindness in her eyes, as wise as her wisdom. That is to say, my grandmother. She smiles, but not like she did earlier. This one is hearty and warm and genuine. Even the way she speaks has changed dramatically. She was a scientist, you know, or she used to be in decades past, though you could barely tell even back then. She dressed in simple, colorful clothes, often several centuries behind the times, and even her vocabulary was, admittedly, quite dated. I don't think I've ever met anyone who said LMAO instead of laughing. Oh, I mispronounced that. I don't think I've ever met anyone who said Lamau instead of laughing. What now? I don't know. Probably a leftover from a past era as well. Then again, I suppose when you get to a certain age, you just stop giving a fuck about certain things. She chuckles to herself, and so do you once you notice the parallels. Other than that, she was quite charming, had a certain way with words, and a real talent for dealing with children. Even ones as annoying and know-it-all as me. Another sigh, likely born of some unspoken embarrassment that you can only imagine. But with her, it's like it didn't even matter. She just seemed to cherish every moment we spent together, down to the very last second. And how could she not be? From my understanding, she fought tooth and nail to even be allowed to visit me. She did, but why? Wouldn't your parents want an ex-scientist to hang around their genius kid? Honestly, I have no clue. Probably some old grudge they never settled. I never found out. Besides, it's not like she came around to teach me rocket science. I mean, in theory, she was supposed to, but instead, anytime we were alone, she took me out for a walk. A walk? Where to? Wherever she felt, and wherever I felt, anytime I expressed such a desire, but usually it was to the park. Ah, I see, she took you out to play. Not exactly. Usually we just find a quiet place and sit on an empty bench and just talk. When we first met when I was very young, I tried to impress her by telling her about all the exams I'd aced that month. I remember her being surprised when that hardly fazed her. At first I thought her standards were even higher than my parents', but then she asked me what the exams were about, so I told her, in great detail. And even though the topics were really complex and hard to explain, she seemed to love hearing me speak, and even to my greater surprise, she started asking questions. To your own surprise? The feline's narration is gradually picking up speed, as if it were a hurricane that the scientist was only barely holding back. You don't believe you've ever seen her this invested in something, certainly not on a video screen. Only her lectures on synthetics from last week could come close to this sudden, unexpected level of enthusiasm. So I thought there might be something wrong with her. I thought it might have been her years catching up with her, or her reputation being a little overhyped. Soon enough, I realized I couldn't be more wrong if I tried. I mean, she knew exactly what questions to ask to keep the conversation flowing, and anytime I forgot an important detail, she asked the perfect question to remind me of it. Clearly, she knew the topics back to front, and she could have flaunted that to my face at any time. But instead, she wanted me to act like a teacher to her. She wanted me to feel proud of my knowledge. And, I don't know, I guess I did feel proud. Around her, at least. For a moment, she pauses, as her own feelings threaten to get the best of her. But it's not long before she's reined them back in, and continues her tale. Of course she did more than just that. Oftentimes she'd drag me to a monument or a museum or some other locale I thought dead and behind the times, and every time without fail she'd prove me wrong. You really should have been there. You should have listened to her speak, Isaac. It was like magic, unfolding right before your eyes. You could find the dullest topic or point at the most boring exhibit in the museum, and she'd tell you all about them in the most exciting of ways. Like a painter, coding the world in a whole new light you didn't even imagine existed. Whoa. You whispered to yourself, trying to picture that very scene in your head, earning a playful grin from your friend. I know, right? A far cry from this boring endless speech of mine, huh? You're not boring. I would have let you come this far if you were. Of course it helps that you seem really into it. She chuckles at your comment, clearly in agreement. I really am, huh? Well, so is she. My parents may have taught me how to read a book, but she's the one who got me to raise my eyes and look at the rest of the world, too. And for that, I'll always be grateful. While Mary's words were still spoken with fondness, already her expression began to sour. Dreading the part that comes next as do you. I guess we're approaching the ending, aren't we? You inquire meekly, earning a despondent reaction from the feline. So I might as well ask, how does the story end? You ask again, trying to rip off the band-aid as painlessly as you can. To no effect. The way it always does. She replies, all the warmth having fled from her lips. She died. She died. Nothing. It is as if all strength had suddenly abandoned her, leaving nothing but sadness and regret in its wake. Tired and on the verge of tears, Mary rises from her seat on the table and takes a few steps away from you, trying to cover her face as best she can. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to leave you hanging. I just can't seem to. It's alright, I get it. You reply as you stand up from your chair, keeping your distance while still trying to be of help. You don't have to continue if you don't want to. I can see her hurting. Yeah, pathetic, isn't it? You'd think at my age you would have come to terms with something that happened so long ago, with my parents and my grandmother, and... It's not pathetic. You interrupt her, stern without raising your voice. The woman turns to face you, her ears pointed upward as if in surprise, trying her best to hide her emotions from you, yet failing nonetheless. You're allowed to grieve, same as I am. Same as everyone is. It's not a weakness. You don't have to hide it from me or feel bad about it, I get it. While it's clear Mary agrees with you, she doesn't look ready to admit it yet. Her gaze skitters across the floor like a kid afraid of their parent. Seeing she's calmed down beside that, you tentatively approach the scientist with slow, measured steps. Wanting to reassure her, you briefly consider giving her a hug, but all things considered, it might not be the best idea. Instead, you simply put your hand behind her back, reaching all the way to her shoulder before continuing. Besides, I don't think it's such a bad thing that you never came to terms with it. I can't be too sure, but I imagine that if you had, you never would have felt the need to come up with synthetics. And then I and so many others wouldn't be here today. So, I think you should be proud of more than just your knowledge. I think you should also be proud of how you've used it. You give the scientist an encouraging smile, hoping it might prove enough of a distraction from whatever's going on in her head. After a few moments of pondering over your words, the woman begins to chuckle to herself beneath her breath. Though her expression hesitates to change. She does place her hand on top of yours, evidently finding some comfort in that. I'm sorry. I meant to distract you from what happened earlier, try and lighten the mood and all that. Instead, I did anything but. It's alright. I can tell you need to blow off some steam just as much as I did. I mean, you make it sound easy, but your job is no joke. Plus, you also have to deal with Jasper and the owners and the FBI and... I don't know. If it were me in your shoes, I would have already tapped out. And even when you're not dealing with them, you're trying your best to spread the word about synthetics, going on all these shows to do so, and only for everyone to treat it like a big dumb joke. That's bound to be at least a little demoralizing. Yup, the story of my life. She sighs, tired and defeated, just as annoyed by this afternoon's events as you are, and possibly more. Suddenly, Mary turns to look at you, a somewhat brazen smile on her face. Somewhat thankful, too. I guess you did end up watching that nonsense after all. Color me surprised. Hey, you're the one who told me to. And I couldn't even make it through the whole thing. Had it not been for your appearance, I would have tuned out even earlier. You're making it seem like I'm forced to a gunpoint. I only meant that as a suggestion. Is that your way of saying I should never listen to you again? Now that would be tragic. Who else would you go to raise your spirits? I don't know. Probably that therapist you should start seeing soon. You laugh again, together this time. Wide smiles on your face, unclouded by pain or regret. Now, of course, it's only temporary. Even from this angle, things still appear quite bleak, whether you're looking at Mary's past or Synthetic's future. Although, now that you think about it, there might be something you can do about it. It's not much, but... What's up? Mary inquires, surprised and just as curious by your sudden interjection. You think through what you're about to ask in your head, pondering whether this is the right moment to bring it up. Especially after what happened this afternoon. No. I've been meaning to bring this up to Mary for a while now, and regardless of what happened earlier, I owe it to him. You take in a deep breath while you prepare yourself to answer. Well, there's something I meant to talk to you about since last week, and it has little to do with what we just mentioned just now. Mary analyzes the serious look on your visor in silence, trying to figure out where you're getting at. Realizing this might take a while, she decides to step over onto the couch and sit down. And she invites you to do the same, to which you oblige. I'm listening. Okay, so, I have this friend, right? His name's Nemarin. We've known each other since before I transitioned. He's been trying to make a name for himself as a streamer, and with us starting to hang out again, he figured we could, try and combine those things. You want to stream together. Mary cuts through your awkwardness without missing a beat, earning a nervous cough from you. Yeah, that was the idea. First, I only wanted to do this because we thought it'd be fun, but maybe this can work to our advantage also. Could help people see Synthetics in a brighter, more approachable light. I see. She mumbles to herself as she contemplates the possibility in her head, something that can't help but confuse you. If you're being recorded every moment of your life, shouldn't she know about your plans already? Would it mean she's putting on an act right now hoping to dupe you? Nope, that can't be it. If she's acting right now, she's way too good at it. No one can fake being invested in something this well. Maybe she's just forgotten about it is all, or perhaps she never did learn about it. What if she doesn't? It could work, yeah. It could work wonders even. Mary exclaims in the midst of your musings, looking quite ecstatic for a change. You think so? Yeah. After all, there's a pretty huge gulf between talking about Synthetics and seeing them in action. I reckon it's about time we started doing less of the former and more of the latter. If you're sure about this, I'll do what I can to facilitate this initiative. I'll have my people talk to the streaming company to make sure they're cool with this, just in case. And then you're good to go. Really? You do that? Of course. If everything goes well, this will help you, your friend, and the project. It's a win-win-win. She explains in that exuberant way only she knows how. And again, you're tempted to fling your arms around her chest. You almost feel bad now thinking about all those nasty things about her just now. And earlier, and even earlier than that. For as much as you doubt her, Mary's always committed to helping you out however she can. You try not to let your disappointment in yourself show as you thank her. Thanks. I'll be sure to tell my friend about this later. I bet he'll be excited. Even more than you are? She says, seemingly unsuspecting of your deeper worries, only for her expression to suddenly straighten out all on its own. That said, I hope you understand what you're getting into. You mumble to yourself, taken aback by the sudden change in her demeanor. Look, the streaming environment can be a lot. Especially if you're not accustomed to it. It might seem like an easy job from a viewer's perspective, but from what I've been told, it can be quite taxing on the other end. Viewer bases can be fickle and unpredictable, and there's no way to tell how they might react to your presence on camera. I'm not caffeinated enough for this. To be honest, it's the reason why I never brought forth any such ideas to you myself. Now it's your turn to look dejected as you consider the scientist's words, immediately picking up on the worry in her voice. I see. That's what I thought. When Nem first suggested this to me, I brought it up to him, but he seemed confident he could handle it. Well, I don't mean to doubt his judgment, or yours for that matter. If you're comfortable with this, you have my full support. I'm simply reminding you to be careful is all. And not that you need me for that. Right. You whisper meekly as you mull it over. Suddenly feeling a little unsure about this, Then, before you can figure out this unexpected conundrum in your head, you notice the feline standing up from her seat, looking a mite uncomfortable all of a sudden. Anyway, sorry for interrupting this, but I think I might need a break. A bathroom kind of break. You don't mind if I... What? No, not at all. Go on ahead, I'll be waiting. Thanks. Be right back. You point her toward the back of your apartment, where she immediately rushes off without hesitation. Wait, hang on. Okay, that's what I thought. Poor Mary, we've been chatting nonstop for nearly an hour now. Should have realized she needed a break way sooner. It's a good thing you no longer do. As glad as you are that you can still breathe, eat, and so forth, you reckon you're probably not going to miss all that stuff anytime soon. Still, now that she's gone, and you have some time to yourself, you can't help but wonder over what she said to you just now. Streaming with Nem might be a lot of fun, and it might improve the public's perception of synthetics a great deal, but it might also expose you to even more problems down the line. You're already used to people leering at you in the streets and saying awful things behind your back. Is it really going to be that much better sitting behind a camera while their messages scroll by? Ugh, come on, Isaac. You can handle those kinds of people the same way you always do. And even if you couldn't, you can't afford to let their opinions control you like that. It's not right and it's not healthy. And it's not fair to Nem either. You try and reassure yourself, hoping to find some solace under the weight of your commitment. After all, you did promise Nem you'd try and make this happen. And now that even Mary's pitching in, you have no excuses to back out. He might have left abruptly earlier when you were together, but deep down he's still your friend. And you owe it to him to aid in his career, just like he would if... Isaac... Mary's voice intrudes upon your thoughts, inquiring loudly from the hallway. Soon after, you spot her peeking from behind the door, equal parts annoyed and desperate. Where did you say the bathroom was? The bathroom? Well, it should be right over... there. You stutter as your mind goes blank, and then realization strikes you like lightning in a clear sky. Oh dear. It's no wonder you can't give her clear directions on this. And it's not long before the agitated scientist discerns why that is either. This might be more troublesome than you had expected. You fucking cat. Not Mary. The cat is in here. Nah, we're gonna go. Get over here, little mister. Get over here. Get over here. Let me take off this fucking hoodie. I'm gonna go get Lucky Toda. My Lucky Toda. Not Leo. And I'm gonna turn on the webcam and change the lights so that way you can see him better. Because he's cute as hell. I'm gonna grab the cat and change the lights. And it's better in here. Hang on, I'm gonna turn on the webcam so that way you can see the cat. We just go grab it. Hey, where are you going? Where are you going? Here he is. Just that, and there we go. Here he is. The cat. Little cat's an asshole. He's adorable. He's cute as hell. But he's an asshole. And he's purring. Actually, we're just gonna head out. We're just gonna dip. You love the little goober? He is a little goober. He's a little goober. Ah. Okay, go play. And well, I'm tired. Stay safe, have a good night, and I will see you all tomorrow.